Once upon a time, dear child, on a night when the snow fell thick and heavy and the wind sang its icy song through the narrow streets of a great old city, there was a little girl. She was very small, so small that when she stood on her tiptoes, she could barely see into the windows where warm light spilled onto the snow. And on that night, the very last night of the year, she had no shoes upon her feet, no hat upon her head, and no coin in her pocket. Her name was not remembered by the people who passed her by. To them, she was only the little match girl. But in her own heart, she was much more. She was a dreamer, a believer, a child who carried hope in her small, trembling hands. The evening had begun with bustle and brightness. Bells rang in the towers, chimneys smoked with feasts being prepared, and every window glowed with golden lamps. Families gathered around tables spread with roasted meats, fresh bread, candied fruits, and steaming soups. Laughter drifted through the frosted glass panes, and the air was rich with the scents of pine branches and sweet cakes. But outside, outside, the world was white and cruel. Snowflakes stung like tiny needles on the skin. The cobblestones were hidden beneath thick drifts, and there, wandering barefoot in the biting wind, was the little girl with her bundle of matches. She had begun the day with shoes. Yes, they were far too large for her, old and worn, once belonging to her mother. But they had been lost. One slipped away when she darted across the street, frightened by the clatter of horses' hooves. The other, a mischievous boy, snatched and ran with, laughing as though it were a prize. And so her poor little feet were left bare, red and swollen, pressed into the frozen ground with every step. She carried her wooden matches in a bundle tied with string, tucked carefully into her apron pocket. All day she had whispered, "Matches, sir, matches, ma'am, only a penny for warmth, only a penny for light." But the passers-by were hurried. Some were too busy, some were too proud. Some looked away, for they did not want to see the child shivering. Not one had stopped, not one had bought. And so she walked now, weary and hopeless, into the deepening night. The bells rang from midnight. Fireworks popped in the distance. Families embraced the promise of the new year. And the little girl, she curled herself into the shadow of two great stone houses, where the wind was slightly less fierce, where the snow piled into a softer bed. She hugged her knees tight beneath her chin. Her breath came out in clouds. Her hands, so small and stiff, trembled against the bundle of matches. She dared not return home, for her father was harsh, and without money from her sales, there would be anger waiting. And besides, home was only a garret room beneath the roof, with great holes in the walls where the winter winds slipped through. It was no warmer there than here. The girl pressed her fingers together and whispered, if only I might light just one match, only one to warm myself. Only one for warmth." And so she did. Strike! The tiny sound echoed in the dark, and there in her palm bloomed a light so small, so fragile, and yet so radiant. It was only a matchstick flame, but to the little girl it seemed a sun. She bent close, her eyes wide, her hands cupped to shelter it. And oh, dear child, in that flickering glow, magic stirred. Before her eyes, the wall of stone faded away. She no longer sat in the snow. Instead, she saw a great iron stove, polished with brass, roaring with a fire so bright that her cheeks flushed. She stretched out her hands to warm them, and her toes tingled with life again. She sighed, smiling for the first time all day. But then the flame sputtered. The match went out. The stove vanished. She was back in the cold, alone in the shadowed street. Her heart ached. Her fingers burned for more warmth. So she struck a second match. Strike! And behold, the wall grew clear as glass. Through it she saw a table, long and splendid, draped in white linen. Upon it rested silver dishes, shining crystal, and in the very center a goose roasted golden brown, stuffed with apples and plums. The scent drifted to her nose, rich and savory. She could almost taste it. And then, oh, wonder of wonders, the goose stepped from the platter, waddled across the floor with knife and fork still in its back, and walked towards her with gentle welcome, as though to offer itself to her empty hands. But once more, the flame died. The table vanished. The goose was gone. Tears welled in her eyes, but still she struck a third match. Strike! And there, rising before her, was the tallest, most beautiful Christmas tree she had ever seen. It reached to the ceiling of a grand hall, its branches hung with thousands of candles twinkling like little stars, with ornaments of every shape and color. Painted angels with golden wings sang silently from the boughs. She reached out a hand, trembling with joy. But the match burned to the end, and poof, the light was gone. The candles rose upward, higher and higher, until they became stars in the dark night sky. One star fell, streaking across the heavens. "A soul is going up to God," whispered the little girl softly. It was what her grandmother had told her once, long ago. Her heart, aching with longing, beat faster. She struck a fourth match. Strike! And in the brilliant glow, she saw her grandmother, her dear, sweet grandmother who had passed away. Oh, how kind her face looked, how warm her arms seemed, how bright her smile was. The little girl cried out with joy, "Grandmother, oh, please take me with you. When the match goes out, you will leave me, just as the stove and the goose and the tree have gone. Don't go away, stay with me." And so, desperate, she lit match after match, every last one in her bundle. And the night blossomed with light. The flame leapt high, bright as noonday. And in that radiance, her grandmother gathered her into loving arms, lifting her higher, higher still, up past the rooftops, past the clouds, past the stars, into a place where there was no hunger, no cold, no fear, only warmth, only peace, only love. When morning came, the city awoke to the first day of the new year. The sun rose golden over the snowy streets, and there, between the two houses, sat the little girl. She was still, her cheeks rosy, her lips curved in a soft smile. Around her lay a scatter of burnt matchsticks. The townspeople shook their heads and said, "Ah, the poor child, she must have tried to warm herself." And they went on their way. But none of them knew the truth. None knew the wonders she had seen, the feasts and the trees, the stars and the grandmother's embrace. None knew that she had been carried with joy and light into the arms of God. And so, dear child, the story of the little match girl is not only one of sorrow, but of hope. For she reminds us that even in the darkest winter night, kindness, compassion, and love are the truest warmth of all. And if you ever see someone cold or hungry, alone or forgotten, remember her. For a small act of care, a coin, a meal, a smile can be the match that lights another's world. And now, close your eyes. Imagine the stars above twinkling gently. Imagine the warmth of a grandmother's arms holding you close. Imagine a place where there is no cold, no hunger, only peace. And let sleep carry you softly into dreams.